Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss WandaVision, starring Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, Catherine Hahn, Tiona Paris, Randall Park, and Kat Dennings, and directed by Matt Shackman. Now, before I get into this review, I said this with the Inhumans last week, and I'm going to do the same thing here. This takes place between Spider Man Far From Home and Black Widow, which will be coming out in May, hopefully. And there's another thing. Oh yeah. The only reason I'm doing this one is because I'm doing miniseries like Inhumans and WandaVision and the upcoming Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I'll get to that one before I get to Black Widow. But how is this gonna go? Let's get into it, shall we? And before I get started, I should say, because I do miniseries, not so much TV series. I don't do that stuff. I just do miniseries. So let's get into the show. I do like when we start off in black and white at the end of the Marvel Studios logo, and we begin in a 1950s, 1960s sitcom TV show like Bewitched, for example, where we meet Wanda Maximoff, returned by Elizabeth Olsen, and Vision, returned by Paul Bettany, just moving into a small town called Westview as a married couple. And we get laughs in the background like a sitcom as we see Vision is going to work and meets their next door neighbor Agnes, played by Catherine Hahn, who seems nice until later on. I'll save her for later. While Vision realizes he has dinner plans with Arthur Hart and his wife Mrs. Hart, who's played by an actress whom I know as from playing the mother Kitty on that 70s show. As the night comes, Wanda believes it's their anniversary and they have dinner in Arthur and Mrs. Hart in the Vision house. And Wanda has trouble with the meal for the evening and briefly gets Vision's help, and they serve breakfast for dinner, and Arthur chokes on his food in his throat and makes his boss happy and considers Vision management material. And when they leave, Vision makes wedding rings, and how much they look like an unusual and cute couple. I like the episode because it's funny, but at times it was strange and awkward. But it was a good introduction for the very first episode. Wanda and Vision hear strange noises, and the strange noises pushes the two beds together as Vision is afraid and Wanda figures out it was a tree branch, which was a funny scene. There's a talent show where Vision is an illusionist. It makes Wanda disappear, and Vision is worried about it working very well. And I like these two as a married couple. I think it's cute. Wanda sees a helicopter toy that's colored, and she wonders what is it doing there. And Agnes shows up and takes her to an all-female meeting with Dottie Jones, who seems pretty mean. And Wanda meets Geraldine, played by Tiona Paris, while Vision is at a neighborhood watch meeting, and that's a new meeting. And Vision makes quite an impression on to the guys, and Wanda hears people and gets visions of things going horribly wrong for Westview at the talent show. Wanda is worried about Vision as he was acting drunk, and he does the show while acting drunk, which was a funny moment for the show, and they impress everyone in the town. And Wanda finds Vision accidentally swallowing gum, which that was the problem throughout, and almost escape until Dottie spots them and gives them a trophy when Wanda thought they were in trouble. And they celebrate the day, and they realize Wanda is pregnant with twins, and they get to the children quickly. And I appreciated that as well as getting into color at the end of the episode. It was a nice way to end to the next episode. Wanda and Vision have a doctor appointment because Wanda is pregnant, and after the appointment, Wanda's stomach is growing more on the stomach, and not by this, and I mean because she's having babies. As the months go by minutes and days, and Wanda feels pain in her stomach, and the sitcom laughter in the background is still for some reason on, still despite in color, but it'll go away eventually in either the next episode or two, Hours after the doctor's appointment, Wanda's water breaks and it starts to briefly rain in the house, and they blow it away with wind. And Vision gets the doctor, and Geraldine comes by the house for a bucket, and Wanda hides her stomach while Geraldine is over, while a fake looking stork is walking around, and Wanda tries to get it to disappear, and eventually runs off while Geraldine tells her the story of how she got promoted. And Wanda finally shows Geraldine the stomach, and they get Wanda to lay down, and she gives birth to one baby while Geraldine is around, names it Tommy, and it gives a second birth to a second baby as the Doctor and Vision and whoever show up, and names it Billy. And that scene is beautifully shot and acted by Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, Teyonah Parris, and the Doctor. And after the Doctor leaves, Wanda tells Geraldine she had a brother named Pietro, and Geraldine knows the story of how Pietro was killed by Ultron in the second Avengers movie. And I thought that's how all of this is connected in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Geraldine has a necklace symbol of an upside down cross. And Geraldine got thrown out of the house in a force field in which Wanda created as her own world. And I thought, where is this going to go? Because that was an intense way to end the episode, and I do like the show thus far. Captain Monica Rambeau, who's also played by Teyonah Parris, hears from her mother's death 3 years after the snap of Thanos, and it was 2 years later as she came back from the dust, and we get a meeting between Monica and director Tyler Hayward about her being grounded by her own mother from flying airplanes, and she goes to a Westview that happens to be in New Jersey, set up by SWORD, and teams up with Jimmy Woo, returned by Randall Park from Ant-Man and the Wasp, as Westview is a missing town and as no one is allowed in because of the force field, that we saw in the last episode. And I do like Jimmy Woo back, despite I didn't really care for his character in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And Monica goes in the force field that leads into Westview, and this whole outside the force field stuff was the SWORD crew doesn't quite work for me, except for when Dr. Darcy Lewis, returned by Kat Dennings from the 2 Thor films, comes into the picture, as she was the most entertaining part about the SWORD scenes, as it makes the show grow for those scenes. Darcy gets an old school TV and turns it on, and we see footage from the first 3 episodes, which was kind of funny as it felt odd, as they find missing people who live in the town with Wanda and Vision, which felt odd as well. But the show does take a while to explain that theory, and I like the fact that it takes its time to get to the point. And we see one of the guys from an earlier episode where he says no to him and rewinds him out of the picture. And Monica, as Geraldine, and the audience, she's getting thrown out by Wanda as we pick up from where the last episode ended. Monica says it was all Wanda, and that twist made me curious about the next episode. It's so hooking. Wanda and Vision try to put the 2 boys to sleep, and it doesn't work until Agnes comes in the house to calm the baby boys down while doing yoga, which is a funny, and they grow up rather too quickly while Agnes is having an alcoholic beverage, which did make me laugh. And we see their cute photos as they grow up together to be bigger boys, and the laughing in the background laughter goes away, which is a good choice for this episode. Meanwhile, Monica is hospitalized and gets up as the SWORD team meeting begins, and they're led to believe Wanda is a terrorist, and they think she has to be destroyed. And we learn she resurrects Vision, which is so bland thanks to director Hayward's acting. Wanda witnesses a dog in the kitchen sink, and the boys want to keep the dog, and Vision says the boys need to be 10 years old in order to keep a dog, and they immediately turn 10, which was funny, and I would have wished that when I was 5 years old. Meanwhile, Monica Darcy and Jimmy discover Wanda's world is bulletproof, which is an interesting turn. Vision is at work and witnesses something strange of his workplace. And it was a strange scene as Wanda and the boys keep the dog and names it Sparky and teaches the dog tricks, and hears someone coming at the door as the dog runs out. And we stop at a drone flying by the town, and Wanda knocks it down, and the sword team almost shoots her down, and Wanda comes out with the drone and force gives it back to them, and she tells them to stay on their side of the force field and should stay in hers, and they refuse as she makes them point their guns at Director Hayward. What I like about Wanda, she's misunderstood and has an arc to live with Vision and have kids. Wanda and the boys hear about Sparky being poisoned dead, which is sad, and I like that scene as it's acted very well by these actors, the two boys, and I like them as their kids and characters. Wanda and Vision have an argument about who is Vision really, and to be honest, I don't know who he is, starting with Avengers Age of Ultron till now. Wanda opens the door and finds Pietro, returned by Evan Peters from the X-Men series, at the door, and I have a problem with that, with the fact Evan Peters is being back. Despite he was in the X-Men universe, it gets really confusing on which one is real or not real, because he was casted by a different actor in Age of Ultron, and so that did bug me for the rest of the show. It's Halloween Day, and the boys with Pietro cause shenanigans in the house, while Wanda and Vision dress up in their costumes as Vision has a neighborhood watch, while Wanda, Billy, Tommy, and Pietro is at the Halloween night parade in the neighborhood. As Pietro causes more shenanigans and Vision walks around and notices something strange going on in Westview, and I saw in the background the movie theater were playing The Parent Trap and The Incredibles, which both are Disney-owned properties, which was rather an interesting and convenient choice. And also, they made a Kick-Ass reference because both he and the actor playing Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was Quicksilver in Ultron, were starred in that movie together. In Kick-Ass, I'll say. Pietro and Wanda talk about what Wanda is doing to the town and what they did when there were kids. Meanwhile, Monica, Darcy, and Jimmy criticize Director Hayward for his planning to destroy Wanda and going to war with her, as they almost get captured until finding their way out of captivity, and they go and see Vision as on the scanner, as Vision is seeing Agnes and directs her to the same place, someplace in town. And I think she's up to something suspicious. And he goes to the force field, and Monica and Jimmy go to her contact while Darcy hacks into firewalls. And Vision gets through the force field, and the military doesn't help him. And Darcy is handcuffed. And I do like the idea of a Halloween special, as it was an interesting episode, until Wanda pushes Pietro out of the family, and Darcy is in the force field. And when the episode ended, it hanged me on a cliffhanger for another week until the next episode, which is a good choice for a TV miniseries. Wanda wakes up without Vision the next day in her Halloween costume and switches clothes off screen and pours herself some cereal with milk, while Vision sees Darcy as a circus performer and calling him a creeper, while Wanda is acting rather strangely as Agnes enters and babysits the kids, and she sees things acting up. Vision releases Darcy from her mind to the current day as Wanda is switching furniture, and all this is very odd. Meanwhile, with Sword, plans are on launching more missiles at Wanda, as Jimmy and Monica realize Dr. Hayward is up to something very wrong. While they drive to Monica's contact, which is getting more interesting, Monica tries to go through the force field and falls as the truck is thrown to the ground, and she goes through on her own and makes it through, and weirdly enough, her eyes turn bright blue for a minute, and that was weird. Darcy drives Vision to their house, and they get stuck in by construction workers as as she says, their love was real and they belong together, which is true. Monica tries to help Wanda, and she pushes her away. And Agnes takes Wanda to her house, and she realizes the boys are missing, and Agnes's real name is Agatha, and that twist was sort of frightening. And as it ends, I couldn't wait for the next episode, and I had to wait a week for the next episode of that revelation. And that song, Agatha All Along, did annoy me, as it's been quoted for the last few weeks. And we will end with Monica being captured by Pietro, and I thought, he's still there? Really? We go back to 1693, where Agatha is being burned because of her as a witch, and I didn't really care for that scene as it was badly acted. Agatha does figure out the accent comes and goes, which is the case with the acting by Elizabeth Olsen. In every movie after Captain America Civil War, her accent comes and goes, and I do like the special effects on the show much better than Inhumans, which was completely crap. And Agatha forces Wanda, how she pulled off the fantasy she did, as well as go back to Wanda and Pietro when they were kids, before they were killed watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is where they got the sitcom laughter in the first 3 episodes. We move on to the cell where she was before in Avengers Age of Ultron, and at the end of Captain America the Winter Soldier, where she was tortured, and I'm thinking she has a really sad story. And we move on to the Avengers building, where Vision keeps her comfortable while watching the TV, and it was a cute scene. Wanda goes into the sword factory to see him lying dead and wants to break him out, but she can't bear the pain, and she goes to Westview to begin her life there on a land that was abandoned, and turns into a 1950s style and brings back Vision, and that's how she created the force field to begin with. And that explains the plot quite a bit, as it makes perfect sense. And Agatha tortures the boys will lead up to the climax, and there's a white version of Vision being bored by the sword company, which will fit the climax rather nicely. The climax begins with Wanda using her powers on Agatha to release the boys, as Agatha takes powers from Wanda, and the white version of Vision throws a car at Agatha as they get a moment together and beats up on Wanda until the real Vision throws it at a house, and the two Visions fight while Wanda and Agatha's fight begins. And Monica is stuck with Pietro, and the Vision fight looked very cartoony. Meanwhile, at Sword, director Hayward has Jimmy captured, and he steals a paperclip in order to call his contact named Clint, who I don't know who that is, except, is it Hawkeye? I don't know, it's driving me nuts. Wanda and Agatha talk while Agatha is on the roof, and she realizes their minds, and the whole town act against her. And Monica realizes Pietro is an actor named Ralph Bohner, which sounds inappropriate, honestly, as it's spelled Bohner. But it's comical. Wanda wants the people to live on with their lives as she destroys part of the force field, and the sword people come into town, and Vision has to destroy the white version of himself, and Wanda saves her family, and Vision and the boys fight together as a family, like in The Incredibles, for example, and Vision starts fighting the white version of himself in the library, which looked like a cartoon. Director Hayward tries to shoot the boys, and Monica saves their lives, and Hayward tries to escape until Darcy runs him over and says, "Have fun in prison," which was the best line from Darcy. The two Visions talk to each other, and Agatha goes back to 1693 with Wanda and fight on the clouds as she's turning into some kind of corpse, which I don't know what that was when her skin turns into, not ashes, but like skeleton bones. I don't know what that was. Hopefully someone can tell me in the comments below the screen. But moving on, Wanda takes power over Agatha, becomes the witch the world should be afraid of, and finally has the Scarlet Witch costume, which will work in the future. Agatha is defeated, and Wanda turns her mind into a nosy neighbor, the nosy neighbor she is, which did make me laugh. Wanda and Vision and the whole family go back home, and Wanda and Vision, after kissing the boys goodnight, each other, and goodbye, and tells everyone in Westview how sorry she was for taking over the city, and gets the force field down, and Wanda and Monica become eventual allies. And Wanda flies away from Westview, and during the credits scene, sets up for, I'm guessing, Captain Marvel 2, where Monica is met up with an alien, and her boss would like to meet her in space, who I'm guessing is Nick Fury. I'm not 100% sure. And the after credits scene is set up for, I'm guessing, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where Wanda is in a cabin in the middle of nowhere as she is controlling where she goes and hears her children while reading a book like a witch, which is something Doctor Strange did do in his solo movie. And as a climax, sets up Wanda pretty well for the future movies, and the action was good despite the Vision fight looking rather cartoony, but I enjoyed it. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this show a 7.4 out of 10. I like the sitcom feelings at the beginning, but they got rid of it after episode 3. I do like the chemistry between Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, and the other performances were good, and Darcy was the best thing about the sword scenes. The special effects were good until we got to the two Vision fighting each other at the end, which did look cartoony, but I enjoyed the show for going through different sitcoms, and this is a good time to be had with a TV miniseries. I also like how funny this was at times, like a 1950s sitcom level. So we'll be back in like a month and a half for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And until that timing, Avengers Assemble!